All right, all right. Welcome into another edition of the Green Teamers podcast. He is Jake Seymour. I am James Scaramozzino. And Jayson Tatum is back. He's fully back. The Celtics are back. Well-oiled machine. Jake was in the building on Friday night for Tatum's return, so we'll get his thoughts on that. But we just watched the Celtics pretty much dismantle a Cleveland Cavaliers team for I would say 3.5 quarters for the most part. The Cavs went on a run and to begin the fourth, but. A really great game from your Boston Celtics. Another great game for your Boston Celtics. Jayson Tatum look like Jayson Tatum again. Kind of an extended run for Tatum in this game, and then an extended break. We'll get into all the Tatum stuff. We'll do Friday night, but I kind of wanted to start it with what we just watched. Jake worked the game for 98.5 The Sports Hub, doing the halftime and the post game. Jake, what were your biggest takeaways from today's win for the Boston Celtics?
So I know we said we talk about Tatum later on, but to me, in this game in particular, Skaz, he's got to be your biggest takeaway. Because I think so often when it comes to sports, when we talk about players coming back from injuries, what can often be lost in that discussion is the mental aspect of the game. And we have talked about so much about how will Jayson Tatum look? What's the minutes restriction going to look like? Is he going to be limited in any capacity? We've spent so much time talking about that we almost have kind of lost the mental aspect of it. And I thought in this game in particular was a great example of that. So Tatum subbed out of the third quarter with it was he subbed out with 6 minutes and 40 seconds left in the third quarter, came back with 7:11 left in the game. So almost a full quarter he sat for. And he was struggling that third quarter after that hot first quarter. He was 0 for 2 from the field, 1 assist and a turnover, scoreless. And in that fourth quarter, he came alive. He had that clutch three-pointer with 2 minutes to go, put the Celtics up 107-95, 2 of 4 from the field, 1 of 3 from three-point range, plus an assist. I just thought that Tatum showing that he could be in the bench for a prolonged period of time and then come up and show off where it mattered the most in a late-game situation where the opponent was coming back was a really big point of his progression, and one that we didn't really get to see Friday because it was a blowout, and it was promising to see Tatum perform well against a team that is a much better opponent compared to the Cavaliers squad. The Maverick squad Friday night.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and I think you kind of saw almost the reversal in the Tatum minutes, where on Friday night he came out and he couldn't buy a shot early on because he was so jacked up, and then he kind of figured it out as the game went on, and then this game he kind of was ready to go out of the gate. He started 4 of 6, 12 points in his first 8 minutes or whatever it was, and then you mentioned 0 for 6 on his next 6 shots. So you kind of saw the fatigue set in there, but the rebounding was huge. And we're going to talk a ton of Tatum, like it deservedly so. It's insane. It really is kind of crazy how good he's looked. He looks like Jayson Tatum out there. Obviously, there's still moments and there's lapses in athleticism and stuff like that you hope will come back as he gets more into game shape. But for me, and I talked about this a little bit on Friday night when you joined us, that it's Peyton Pritchard, it's Derek White, even Baylor Shireman tonight, Jaylen Brown, these guys all just look so much better. Everyone just kind of fits into the roster, with Tatum out there more. Peyton Pritchard is solidified in that off the bench role. You see Baylor Shireman, hit a couple threes tonight, play a really smart game, a really good game. And Luka Garza stepping up with Vucevic out, but the Celtics' depth is not something that I think we really talked about this year, just because, you looked at Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and kind of the rest of the roster and said, Pritchard will give you some points, but after that, we don't really know. And on a night like tonight, Pritchard gives you 18, Shireman gives you 16. The entire Cleveland Cavaliers bench, 13 points. So that's just a massive, massive advantage for the Celtics team that they haven't really had all season. And I think you're starting to see, how different ways they can win, even more ways they can win now with Tatum back.
Right. I mean, even in that first half, too, Skaz, they outscored the Cavs, the bench, 19-2 in the first half. So it was very crucial early on, especially when Tatum went to the bench. He had a great start, but when Tatum went to the bench, you didn't see the Celtics lose any scoring. In fact, it might have gotten a little bit better, which is crazy to say, considering Tatum had 12 first quarter points and was lights out to open this game. So I guess to me, that's the second part of this, Skaz, is that with Tatum coming back, it opens up more opportunities for the role players in the sense that they're now not asked to do as much. So it allows them to be more flexible, come off the bench, and have better matchups because now they're matching up with the team's second unit instead of being second unit role players matching up against starting lineups. Not that there was really much of an issue with that per se this season. At times, sure, you get outmatched in some games, but for the most part, they did a good job handling that, and now they're able to play a lot better against other bench units. And I'm curious to see. I mean, it's only been 2 games. I'm curious to see how that develops, especially with San Antonio and Oklahoma City. But right now, it's been some pretty good early returns.
Yeah, I mean, we get accused of, or I should say, I get accused, and the night show gets accused of green teaming and letting the goo fly. But I don't understand how after these 2 games you couldn't feel that way, especially after this game today. Cleveland, and look, I'm James Harden's a Hall of Famer. He's an unbelievable player, but he's not a winning player, unfortunately, anymore in the NBA. He's not a two-way player by any means anymore. Not what he once was with OKC, but that is a very good, Cleveland Cavaliers team. And I was texting with, some people today during the game and basically saying that if there was a player you could design in a lab to give Neemias Queta fits that would give Queta problems, it would be Evan Mobley. Like, Evan Mobley is an athletic big, it does everything right, can pass, can shoot. And not that Queta put the clamps on him or anything like that, but it's just how they're able to adapt, how they're able to find different ways to win. And part of it's Tatum. I thought Jaylen Brown was really good again tonight. Taking what was given to him, a lot of the mid-range jumpers when they really needed it. It was good to see him and Baylor Shireman kind of play the 2-man game there in the fourth quarter, which I thought was interesting. I've been really impressed with Shireman. And the Celtics just, they go up big. They're up by 20 or whatever it is at half, and then Cleveland comes out in the third quarter and they go on a little bit of a run, and then the Celtics immediately end it. The fourth quarter starts. Cleveland goes on a 12-5 run, and then Jalen hits Shireman for a 3 in the corner. That kind of stems that run, and a couple bad plays here and there, but the Celtics just find ways to win. I've been really impressed with Missoula, how they've managed Tatum in these first 2 games, and yeah, I'm very interested to see what the minutes load will be like in Oklahoma City and in San Antonio. What have you thought of Missoula in the first 2 games with Tatum back?
It was kind of interesting. I was going to bring this up with the minutes that Tatum played today, is that you mentioned it was kind of different, and Missoula, I think, realized to go backwards from that. I also wonder if Missoula was trying to scheme up a way for Tatum to almost face the adversity of coming off the bench in a way that, he started the halftime. He started the third quarter and went to the bench 5 minutes into that quarter, comes back out and finishes the rest of the game. So for Missoula's sake, I was curious if that was intentional, because for a while it seemed like Tatum kind of had a minutes restriction, which I know Missoula said early on in the week, or Friday night, he said that there was be no minutes restriction for Tatum. So that to me is an interesting develop, is Missoula trying different ways to change his minutes. He played a lot in that first quarter. Played almost 9 minutes of the first quarter. So it seemed like early on it wasn't going to be an issue, and then quickly you got to the fourth quarter, like, okay, where's Tatum? I think at that point he had only played, I feel like it was less than 20 minutes at that point. And you kind of started scratching your head, like, all right, did he tweak something? Is he on that minutes restriction and they're waiting to put him back in until 4 minutes left to go in the game? It seems like they're trying to be cautious. It's the second time that he's played 27 minutes, which I don't think that's a coincidence now, that he's hit 27 minutes on both games. Not that that's a small amount. It's still a lot amount for a player coming off a ruptured Achilles, but just something to kind of keep in mind as the Celtics move to San Antonio and Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and I was like, when they were up, 20 plus, I almost thought we might not see him the rest of the game. Like, I was like, if they keep this lead, yeah, I'm fine if we don't see him again. Like, and, maybe they were, part of the plan was always he's got to get, the minutes in the fourth quarter just to keep the stamina, keep the conditioning up. But, yeah, I think his minutes have been good. I've been really impressed. Shout out to, Nick Sang and Tatum's entire team for getting him back out there. And, there was a sequence in this game that I thought was really kind of pivotal, and it was right after the 6-minute mark. I think Kenny Atkinson challenges the call. They win the challenge, and then it was a 10 or an 11-point game, 97-86. Then Pritchard cooks Harden. He's got him dancing. He's on skates. He's almost pop lock and dropping basically on defense. Pritchard's spinning him like a top, hits that. Then Tatum hits a tough layup, and then Harden hits a three. He has that crazy assist to Mobley, and you're like, okay, Cleveland's got a little momentum here. Just an outrageous assist too from Harden.
That was a good play.
Like, I think the broadcast might have said it on ABC that I thought it was going in the third row. Like the camera angle looked like it was like Kata's half court shot the other night where he hit the shot clock. Like I thought it was going to be something like that. And then shout out to Pritchard because the next possession is when he breaks the tough double team. They kind of press him up into the corner, and he breaks it, and Tatum ends up hitting the three. So I thought that was kind of a huge swing in the game there where, the Celtics, this wasn't by definition a clutch game. I think it has to be 5 points within 5 minutes or whatever it is. So I don't know if it ever got to that margin, but we haven't seen the Celtics, they get criticized for blowing leads and letting teams come back into games. And I thought they did a really good job of, not letting that happen today. And it was everybody. It was Shireman, Pritchard, obviously White and Brown and Tatum, I should say as well. But it was everybody chipping in. And I just thought that was a very good team win. And the Cavs just, I don't know what that team is doing. You acquired James Harden, but I don't see them doing. At one point, Jake, we sat on this podcast, and I said I think Cleveland might be the favorite in the East with the Knicks. Very early in the season before we knew just how good Detroit was, and now Cleveland might be the sixth best team in the East, especially if Tatum continues to look like this.
Yeah, I mean, what happened with Cleveland, I think they're the common folktale of what happens to a team that sees success in a prior season and then feels like they need to do something extra and does something stupid by trading for James Harden. That's effectively what Cleveland did, and that's how they get in situations like this. And they're not the only franchise to do this, guys. There's been other franchises that consistently do this. Like, I would be watching the Pistons and to see what they do because now they're seeing success as the first seed in the Eastern Conference, contending to get out of the conference. Do they do something stupid this offseason or next season, feeling like they need to make some kind of upgrade? I don't know, but it just feels like that's a common thread. Like we saw it with the Clippers a few years ago when they got out. I know they went out and got Kawhi and Paul George came in. They went out and got Harden, ironically. Maybe not really a coincidence there. But just kind of keep that in mind as you start to see how the Celtics develop. The Celtics have never gone out and gotten guys that have been these big name players. Like I know they made the Porzingis trade and the Holiday trade, but I remember the initial reaction to each of those decisions was, oh, Holiday was a good pickup, but Porzingis? Why are you getting Porzingis? That guy's out of the, heading toward out of the league, and look at where Porzingis did in Boston. So I just kind of feel like that's an interesting trend in the NBA, and I think Cleveland was victim of that trend right now.
Yeah, and I think the Eastern Conference is, down as a whole this year. It's the NBA is down as a whole this year. It's the bottom, third of the league is as bad as I can remember. There's some really bad basketball teams playing on a nightly basis, and the Celtics have taken advantage of it all year. And I heard Jalen talk about it on, I believe it was the Cousins podcast with Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady, and then again on his stream after the game on Friday night, where credit to the organization, credit to Jalen and Joe for having the team in the position they're in. So when Tatum returns, he wasn't returning to lost games. That I think that Jalen talked about the unselfishness of Tatum returning when he did. I think that you could a little overblown, but I do think the Celtics being in contention and being where they're at has, I don't want to say sped up Tatum's recovery because I don't think the Celtics would do that, but I do think it's made it, I don't know the right way to word it, but almost like more worthwhile, more impactful that he's returning to meaningful basketball right away. Like there was a clear goal, a clear something for him to come back to this season, as opposed to waiting until next season if the organization had, punted this year, which wasn't really possible with even just Jaylen Brown and Derek White on your roster in this Eastern Conference. So, a great win over the Cavs. I don't know if you have any more thoughts on the game because you were.
Yeah, just want to throw this out here,
Please.
Scaz. So, Street Team Joe just texted us this tweet from Jay King.
Is it appropriate?
Somewhat
Okay.
breaking news. Yeah, yes, it is appropriate. It's a tweet from Jay King. Somewhat breaking news. Jayson Tatum, quote: "The toughest part of me is just being on minutes restriction. This shit sucks, quite frankly."
Hey.
So Mazzulla said pregame Friday that Tatum was not on a minutes restriction, and what does Tatum say after a second game, I'm on minute restriction.
Yeah, that's classic Tatum. Joe and Brad have fought with him since the second he got in the league, to rest, to sit out games, to do all that stuff. And Tatum hates every second of it. I think it's why, part of the reason why, people should like Jayson Tatum, dare I see even, love or, be a fan of. Because he's not like your everyday superstar. The guy wants to play basketball. He wants to be out there. And, I understand that's an incredibly low bar for a professional athlete, but in that league, that's become kind of a rare thing where a player will do just about anything to be back on the court. And Tatum has shown you over the last calendar year that he literally will do anything to be back out on the court, playing winning basketball for the Boston Celtics. And I love to hear that quote. I already got my socks. My pants might be coming off next. We get more quotes like this post game. But yeah, it's thank God this is only a headshot, Jake.
Yeah, I agree with this. I agree with that sentiment for the beginning half of it at least. But my point that I brought that up is, so is Tatum on the minutes restriction or not? Mazzulla said pregame Friday night he was not on a minutes restriction. He played 27 minutes, which when you just look at the box score, you say, I mean, probably not a restriction per se, but certainly not playing, the 30, 35 minutes that Tatum would probably be playing. And it makes sense to ease him back into it. But how can Tatum come out now and say he's on a minutes restriction? So it makes sense. I said it maybe 10 minutes ago that Tatum, it was interesting. He played exactly 27 minutes in back-to-back games. And here we are, Tatum postgame from Jay King. Quote, where'd it go? Twitter just refreshed on me, so I just lost it. But
Hold on, I got it.
Here it is. The toughest part for me is just being on minute restriction. That shit sucks, quite frankly.
Hard agree, Jason. Hard agree. I think it sucks too. I would like to watch you for 45 minutes tonight, but in the best interest of your health and the future of the Boston Celtics, I'm okay with it. I believe it was George Sedano who originally had the no minutes restriction report. Was it directly from Mazzulla? That I can't remember, but I think it was Sedano that had it. And yeah, I mean, yeah, you would have to expect there's some kind of minutes restriction there. I mean, I think it's very funny that Tatum just came out and said it, because that's very Jayson Tatum of him to just be like, I want to play more basketball, which is good. That's a good thing. Well, you were there Friday night. What was it like Friday pregame? The building, the buzz, and then kind of the whole thing. Jake, I'm gonna sit back. I'm gonna put my feet up. I want to hear what it was like to be in the building for Jayson Tatum's long-awaited return.
Yeah, it was cool to be there. The environment and the atmosphere was great. It was loud. The crowd popped when Tatum got onto the floor. Not even for the lineups or when he ran out to the floor for pregame. It was the warm-ups. I think it was almost an hour or so before when he came out for pregame warm-ups, and there was a large contingent of Celtics fans just huddling near the tunnel. So it was cool to see that. And I was standing on the baseline when he was warming up pregame, and almost the whole time smiling ear to ear. He had the brightest smile that kind of carried him throughout the game. And it was one of the things I wrote for on 95thesportshub.com about that game, is that when I first got to the arena, I turned the corner to go to the press room, and that's kind of where the Celtics and the Bruins players, where they enter the building and head to the locker room. I turn the corner, and all I just see are like these blinding flashing lights from the cameras. And I realized, okay, I think Tatum's walking by. I want to get video of it. So I just quickly took out my phone, press record, and sure enough, here comes Tatum walking down the hallway. But the biggest thing that I took away from that was he was smiling, and when he kind of turned the corner to go to the Celtics locker room, he goes, "We are so back." Just enunciated the "so," and it felt like that kind of set the tone for the night, that he had the emotions and he was dealing with them, but it was like excitement. I'm sure he was, nervous or anxious or whatever the case may be, but that was a good moment. And I kind of, wrote about that, and how what's really going to be the biggest test is how the Celtics perform this week, considering that's going to be the test for when the lights are the brightest. So just something to kind of keep in mind as you move forward is Tatum looked great Friday night. The crowd was awesome. There was a lot of noise, a lot of excitement. We saw Geno time at the end. Celtics blew out the Mavs, so that's always a big thing for Celtics fans. And in general, it was a good night to be in the building. And it was funny too, because it felt like it was a great game for a long time. It was tightly contested, and then the Celtics just started to run away with it. And I will say too, just guys, Cooper Flagg's legit. It was the first time I've seen him play in person, and although I was up on level 9, I was really happy to see how he's performed. He invites contact. He's old school, man. Like, that's a player who, if you ever get a chance to see Cooper Flag play in the NBA, I would go to every Celtics game the Mavericks play at the Garden, because it was great to watch play. And he didn't have that good of a game, but you don't see that kind of play style a lot in the NBA anymore. And it was just refreshing to see players inviting contact, driving to the basket. Just an overall great sight.
Yeah, I mean, don't let Tony Maz hear you say that. But yeah, when you're talking about Tatum, smiling ear to ear, that's how I felt watching him. And Jalen even said the same thing on his stream post game on Friday. He said, just seeing Tatum out there after everything he went through the last year, like just seeing that, what basketball means to him, that purpose brought back, kind of, that part of his life for that purpose to be brought back was a huge thing. And I think that is, a little bit of an underrated part of that whole thing is just, what it's like for these guys to be away from the sport. Like, I don't know, I know people, in the real world hate their jobs and all that stuff, but if I don't work for a couple of days, I start to lose my mind. So I can't imagine what someone like Jayson Tatum felt like, a month after the surgery, where he just is still so far away. So for it to finally be here is, it's great. It's great for the Celtics. And, now I think, thankfully the conversation will start to turn from just being about Jayson Tatum and start being about, realistic expectations for this Boston Celtics team, because right now the Eastern Conference has to be a real, thing for them. Like, there is a legitimate chance for them to come out of the East yet again in a year where, they shouldn't really be in the conversation. I mean, if you're a Cavs fan watching that game today, aren't you just like, what the F, man? Like how is this still happening? Like I have to watch Baylor Shireman and Sam Hauser just hit threes, and Peyton Pritchard cook James Harden, and then all of a sudden Jayson Tatum's back too, and he looks like Jayson Tatum. Like, you're a Knicks fan, you're like, all right, well, we'll at least be the 2 seed in the East at worst this season because Tatum's out. But nope, the Celtics are the 2 seed, Tatum's back, and here we go, Jake. It's March 8th, and the playoffs are near, and the Boston Celtics are right at the top of the Eastern Conference again.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the big part of this too is just where everything's starting to shake up. Is, I know you kind of mentioned it there, how the Knicks have got to feel threatened. The Cavaliers certainly had to feel that way, but even the Pistons, who have been with the top seed in Detroit so far, it just feels like it's the Eastern Conference runs through Boston. And I think a year ago, if you had said that, you would have been called a green teamer. You would have been, Mr. Too Positive, and now it's a reality, and that's surprising.
Yeah, and just kudos to them, and also the Eastern Conference stinks is also a big part of that. The Bucks stink, the Heat stink, the Raptors have they're okay, I guess, at times, but yeah, it's just there's been some bad basketball this year, and now you look at a massive game coming up against San Antonio, a massive game coming up against Oklahoma City, and with what we've seen so far, we talked about on Friday night a little bit. We guessed, we pondered how much Jayson Tatum would play on this road trip, and then now after the first game, Jake, where are you with his minutes on this road trip? I know we're getting some breaking news regarding those minutes, but where are you at now as opposed to Friday night?
Yeah, and I was just going back through and looking at the presser because I couldn't remember. You were right. So, ESPN had that minute restriction thing. I thought he got it from the press conference with Mazzulla, but Mazzulla said there was no idea if Tatum would have a minutes restriction, and I guess there is now. So I don't know why we just can't get a clear answer on that. Like, again, not to be that guy, but is it really that difficult to say, hey, he's on a minutes restriction, or hey, he's not on a minutes restriction? Like, come on, the guy's playing already. Based off him playing 27 minutes, I'd have to say he's capped somewhere around 27 to 30 minutes. He's going over 25. So I'm curious to see what happens in San Antonio. Does he rest against San Antonio, or does he rest against Oklahoma City? I personally think, not to be Mr. A-hole here, I think it'd be kind of cowardly if he kind of sat out against Oklahoma City, just because that's the marquee game of this road trip. So if you're going to come back for the road trip, don't you want to see Tatum play against the team that is the favorite to come out of the Western Conference as the finals? You're going to play them in a week or two anyways at home, so you get another chance to go at him at full health. I mean, I know Vucevic is now hurt with a broken ring finger. We haven't really touched on that, but I don't know. I would like to see Tatum face the team that's most likely going to get out of the Western Conference.
Yeah, and I think you could make an argument that the team could be the Spurs, the way they've played over the last month. If Tatum sits the OKC game, I will spend a lot of time on Twitter that day just for the pure entertainment value of the reaction to him sitting that game. Yeah, for me, looking at the road trip, Cleveland was the most important game, just Eastern Conference standings wise. But as an NBA fan, you want him to play against Wemby and SGA. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's I'm sure the league wants that. I'm sure Tatum wants that. So we when we discussed this Friday night, I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, Jake, but I think Joe and myself both said he has to rest, or not has to, but our expectation was that he would rest at least one of these games, just because he's coming back from an Achilles injury. Like it just makes sense. But after these first two games, he could play 25 minutes against both teams. Like maybe this is a 1 o'clock game. He's going to have, until what? They play, I'm trying to think, Tuesday and Thursday. Is that what it is?
Tuesday, Thursday, and then back home Saturday against the Wizards.
Yeah, so maybe he sits that Wizards game.
I was going to say, if you're going to sit a game, it's the one against the Wizards. I know it's a home game, so you don't want to do that if you're Tatum. And I guess also let me clarify, too, I don't think Tatum will be the one who wants to sit against either of those teams. It'll be the Celtics that do it. So I guess maybe it's cowardly for the Celtics to consider that, not much on Tatum, because I doubt Tatum, as a competitor, would want to miss those games. But still, don't rest them for the two most important games against teams that are going to be competing to get out of their conference. You want to get that rep. I know you don't, you can sit here and say, oh, but what do we put on film? Well, play it. See what happens.
He'll play at least one. I would be, if he doesn't play at least one, then something has gone wrong. But yeah, I'll be very interested. I guess we'll kind of know tomorrow night what that injury, or tomorrow afternoon even, what that injury report may look like. So, be on the lookout for that. But, that's just another piece of the puzzle is, how many games will he play down the stretch? I think they only have like 19 games left or something like
18.
that. 18 games left now. Yeah. So not a lot of basketball left. I mean, we talked about it, in the podcast that didn't matter, about how much of a runway he needed to get going. And it seems like he's going to have more than enough of that. So I guess we should talk about a guy who we won't know about his runway. We can get back into Tatum to wrap it up, but we haven't talked about Vucevic. You mentioned him very briefly there. Fractured ring finger, I think is what it was. He had surgery. Shams had that, I think, before Vucevic had even knew what happened. I think Shams might have been in the MRI room underneath TD Garden or something. That report came out so quickly. That was shocking for that to happen in a game. Like I swear that Vucevic got injured and Shams had the report like before halftime or something like that.
Yeah,
like, it was that crazy. So yeah, I don't even know how that works. But yeah, your thoughts on the Vucevic injury and Luka Garza kind of stepping into that role?
Just quickly on that, I always thought it was interesting with those injury reports, how they come out so quickly, because isn't that like a HIPAA violation?
Yeah, like I swear, like I think Shams might have known before Vucevic. Like I don't know how that's possible, but I think there's a chance that Shams knew he had a broken finger before it was confirmed to Vucevic. Like that's how fast it was.
I also wonder if that's a league thing or if it's a team thing, because Shams gets it for everybody. So part of me that wants to say, I don't know exactly how the injuries or the MRI system works, but what if there's league officials in there who get it, and then that's how it gets leaked, and not on the Celtics? Because if you look at Tatum's Achilles thing, and this was my biggest gripe in that podcast, it didn't matter. It's Tatum, the information was very vague at best, and that was intentional by the Celtics. None of that was leaked. So that's, good on the organization for that and controlling what they wanted out there. You don't see that often anymore with agents and everybody. But I don't know, just kind of thought that was a unique situation. Maybe the agents too. The agents are going to be, I would have to guess, if they're in the building around that. But anyways, with Vucevic as a whole, he had surgery yesterday morning, and he's going to be out for approximately a month. So give or take, less over that, right around a month. And that puts him squarely to come back right around the end of the regular season. I believe April 12th, April 14th.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I know it's against the Magic. They're finally April 12th, 6 p.m. start. So maybe he comes back. They got 2 home games to finish the regular season. They're home against New Orleans on a Friday night, and then they're home against Orlando at 6 p.m. So if they're both come back for that. And we also have, speaking of injuries, Shams Charania, Sixers All-Star Tyrese Maxey suffered a sprain in the right fifth finger and is out for the next 2 games. So also I get some more injury news in the NBA across the whole. But Vucevic, I thought he's played well for the Celtics, but do you feel like Luka Garza is a better fit as a backup big man role right off the bench?
I've seen this on Celtics Twitter. They've already, anointing Luka Garza as a better fit than Vucevic. And look, I like Garza a lot. He's been, we talk a lot about Keita and Shireman being the most improved guys this year and kind of stepping into roles. I think Garza deserves a ton of credit too. He was a guy, when they signed, we knew he was in college, player of the year, a great college basketball player, but hadn't really done anything in Minnesota. But Brad Stevens once again identifies a guy that he thinks will fit the system, and he's been really good. He's impressed me. His offensive game is really good. He's got great footwork. He hits the occasional three. I don't think he's better than Nikola Vucevic right now. I still think in a playoff series when the game slows down a little bit and there's more of the half court offense, I think Vucevic will be a great asset. Especially you watch Tatum even on Friday night right out of the gate run the 2-man game with Keita, and just flashback to Luke Cornett and Rob Williams and just any big that can move even a little bit. Tatum finds a way to really make them better and kind of find a relationship with them there. So I think in a playoff series when it slows down, it's more of a deliberate offense. I think Vucevic and Tatum can really find something there. But I haven't been impressed with Garza, and I think in the regular season he's fine in that spot, and it shouldn't really hinder them all that much.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that, Skaz. And I guess the point that I bring up with Luka Garza being the better fit is that do we expect the Celtics team to re-sign Vucevic after the season? He's on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, I mean, I maybe for cheap money if he wants.
Well,
to
that's
stick
the
around.
thing.
Yeah,
for cheap money, I'm telling you this: the Celtics are not going over the luxury tax because they want to reset the repeater clock. So
not for
I don't.
Vucevic.
Right. So if that's the case, wouldn't you rather just give the minutes to Luka Garza to fully flush out what you have with him and get him ready for the playoffs? Because that's a guy who really doesn't have any playoff experience. I know he was on the T-Wolves for a little bit, and they had some deep runs, but I mean, he probably rarely played in those games.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think this is a great runway. We talk about runways, Jake. I think this is a great runway for Garza to kind of earn that spot and show the Celtics that maybe he is worth a look next year and to be a Vucevic replacement. But I see a comment here, Jake. I don't know if you've
I've seen this comment,
but this it says, "Are you going to call out those frauds who questioned if Tatum and Brown can play together, and that the team would be worse with Tatum coming back?" Love the podcast from James in Waltham. A big fan of James and Waltham myself. Jake, what do you make of the people who spent the last 2 weeks pontificating that the return of Jayson Tatum may be bad for a basketball team?
So I think it was all going to depend on how Tatum A felt physically, and B how the organization meshed him into the lineup. I thought it was fair to question it and to have some debate about it because, oh, wait a minute, what did Jayson Tatum say on that Pivot podcast? He mentioned the fact that it was going to be maybe interesting to see how he reintegrates with the team. He's had questions about that. So I was taking his word at face value, saying, oh, maybe there could be some kind of issues. I didn't expect there to be any issues because a lot of the players, especially Brown and Tatum, have been together for so long. But at the same time, I mean, guys, don't you think it was fair to at least question how it would all work out, considering that they haven't played basketball together in almost a year?
Not really.
Really? I mean, they come off the. I think it was fair to say after the 4 games, maybe it would take some time to reacclimate and readjust.
I think the reacclimation and it being a little clunky and all that is more than a fair conversation. When we start getting the pontificating from some of the talking heads that Jayson Tatum may impede their ability to win basketball games, or may have a hard time figuring out how to adjust to their new system, that's when you lose me a little bit. I think Jayson Tatum is pretty good at basketball and also maybe the most versatile player in the entire league. So I think he's well suited to fit any style, and I think you've seen that already. But yeah, I mean, we're here to spread the goo. I never thought adding Jayson Tatum to the basketball team would be a bad thing. That's just me.
I didn't think it was going to be a bad thing either. I just thought it was fair to question about how it would exactly work out, considering Tatum himself had questions about it, and we're talking about bringing another player into a team midway through. Like, you'd say the same thing if the Celtics got someone at the deadline, like Vucevic. Didn't we have questions about how he would integrate with the team, considering he was a mid-season acquisition at the trade deadline? Yeah, and Simons too going out. Like, how do you replace Simons after what he had done? Like, those are all fair questions to ask.
Absolutely, more than fair, and for me, I think when you're having those discussions, people focus so much on Tatum and Brown that they forget about the rest of the roster. Like we spent, I don't know, I don't want to say half the podcast this season, but a good chunk of it talking about Derek White and about Peyton Pritchard and their productivity and how that has kind of lapsed at times this year. And immediately Jayson Tatum comes back and Derek White looks like Derek White. Like, not that he, was bad this year by any means, but he had a down January, and there were times where you wanted more out of him. Peyton Pritchard, as a starter, was, serviceable, but he's certainly better off the bench. So for me, Tatum and Brown were never. I've never once viewed having Tatum and Brown on the basketball team as anything other than a positive, and I think the rest of the roster certainly benefits from it as well. So a big thank you to James and Waltham, because that was a point that needed to be discussed. I believe those frauds need to be called out on.
Yeah, the fake news media.
Yeah, exactly. The big news media there, the hoop heads, the fake hoop heads, the fraudulent hoop heads. Who just look at the box scores. So, yes, shout out James and Waltham.
I just want to highlight this, too. Like, I need to see more from Derek White with Tatum being back now. He had 6 points tonight, 2 of 9 shooting. He's had a better March, or at least start to. He's averaging 22 points in the month so far. February, he was 16.5, so he's been playing better. But 6 points against the Cavs on 2 of 9 shooting and an 0 for 3 mark from deep, not going to cut it.
No, certainly not going to cut it, and you kind of get away with it against the Cavs team who daylight savings time maybe got the best of them this morning. I'm not sure. The spring forward really hindered Kenny Atkinson's club today. They just weren't great off the jump. Baylor Shireman's taking it to him. You were in the studio, so you missed the great Inside the NBA at halftime. But
I heard about it on Twitter. Did Shaq not know who Baylor Shireman was?
Shaq did not know who Baylor Shireman was, and also said he would never let a man named Baylor score on him. People don't like Inside the NBA. I think that's great basketball analysis. I'm a fan. He also said he wouldn't let anyone named Max score on him either. So, good for Charles.
Where did the Max come up?
Struce? I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Is that I don't know. That's weird.
But yeah, so another good couple days for the Celtics. Baylor Shireman, shout out Tree Team Joe, continues to prove that he is a good NBA player. He continues to shoot 40% from beyond the arc, which I would say is good. He winning basketball. Ugo, I want to see him more Ugo and Tatum. I think that pairing is something that we haven't really seen yet. And I like Shireman and Jalen out there together. I think they see, kind of the same things out there. They seem to know each other's spots already. And I'm in on the Shireman, lefty oversized T-shirt experiment. I'm all in on that. I think he's proven himself to be a pretty good player. So, Jake, we have OKC, San Antonio and OKC coming up. Maybe we try and sneak one of these in during the week. We'll see what happens. But any closing thoughts, Jayson Tatum thoughts before we wrap it up?
Where does Jordan Walsh fit into all this?
Well, it's a great question because he might be the odd man out, kind of. You look at the way Shireman's played lately, and even before Tatum came back, it seemed like Walsh was up and down. I know he had one really great game in the last couple weeks. I can't remember exactly which game it was, but I think he had a double-double. But, yeah, he's a guy who was very good early in the season, has kind of ebbed and flowed. He was fighting with Shireman and Josh Minot for minutes at one point. So I still think there's a spot for Jordan Walsh, especially defensively. I think he's, an athletic wing with good size that other than the foul troubles, gives you good minutes. So I still think there is a spot for him, but where is that and when is that is a great question. I think maybe that's something we watch over the next week is kind of Joe figuring out the rotations, because I think that's what the next couple weeks is going to be about. I'm really interested to see what the rotations against OKC and San Antonio will be, because I was looking for that today, but because of the score, I didn't feel like we really got great insight into rotations. Maybe more Tatum's when he's going to be in and out of the games we got kind of a look at, but I want to see what the rotations look like in a close game, against Wemby and against SGA.
So Jordan Walsh was missed Friday's game. He was out with a non-COVID related illness. And then Friday night, Vucevic goes down. So they're already down 2 players who were in the rotation after getting Tatum back. I was expecting to see some Jordan Walsh minutes today. He was not on the injury report with that illness. He was a DNP from a coach's decision. So I don't know. Maybe he was still sick and Missoula just didn't play him. Maybe I don't know. Whatever the case was, but him not playing should be something that we should keep an eye on, because like you said, Skaz, he not only is he the odd man out, it does feel like his game is not necessarily needed if Baylor Shireman and Luka Garza are playing at the level that they're playing at. So, and then the Gonzalez now is getting more minutes than him. So that's also to me is interesting, is that Gonzalez jumped him in the rotation over Jordan Walsh. So I don't know. I don't really know what to make of that right now. I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but I just something that kind of stood out to me as we start to see how the Celtics team plays with Jayson Tatum back.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. We always try to leave you with something to watch at the end of these podcasts. And, Jake, I think you just gave me something to really key in on there is these, Shireman, Walsh, minutes here. Who's going to get that spot? Because with the playoffs looming, like, you are going to need that seventh, eighth guy at times. Cato's going to get in foul trouble. Vucevic is going to get in foul trouble. We've even seen, Jalen and Shireman. I'm sure Ugo runs around like, a slightly more controlled Aaron Nesmith at times out there. So, yeah, foul trouble is inevitable. And can I give you one other thing too? I was talking to my buddy Kyle Irving, who does a lot of the NBA coverage over at Underdog, and he was talking to somebody else in the business who knows he's a Celtics fan and asked him this question. Like, we give the Celtics a ton of credit for Peyton Pritchard, Baylor Shireman, Sam Hauser, all these guys. Can you think of a guy the Celtics have let go in the Brad Stevens era that's gotten better elsewhere? And the only guy we could come up with is Aaron Nesmith, and that wasn't really a Celtics letting a good player go. It was more they didn't have room for him, and they almost wanted to let him develop elsewhere. Like the Celtics, no one leaves the Celtics and really becomes better elsewhere, and that's something we gave the Patriots credit for 20 years of being too early rather than too late. And even the Patriots would have an occasional Chandler Jones or Richard Seymour, just a guy they didn't want to pay who was a Hall of Famer. But I can't think of a guy in the Brad Stevens era where they moved on from him or let him go and he was better elsewhere, which I think is just another testament to their talent evaluation.
Maybe not better elsewhere, but continuing to be the same player and be impactful. Luke Cornett this year in San Antonio.
Yeah,
they should have kept him.
One. That's a good one. Cornett's a good one. The only other ones I could even try and think of were Terry Rozier, and he was throwing games allegedly for the league. So I don't know how much you really want to give Terry credit there. But yeah, like Kelly Olynyk's
allegedly throwing games,
of course, allegedly. Kelly Olynyk's best games, were as a Celtic. Marcus Smart certainly. Like, yeah, I mean, so just an interesting thing. Where these guys, the Celtics, kind of know when the timer's up on them. So I think that's enough green goo for me today. I will be intently watching the Celtics rotations the next few games. Jake Seymour continues to crush it at the Sports Hub. You heard him today on the radio doing pre, halftime, and post-game. He was in the building Friday night. Check out all his coverage on 98.5thesportshub.com. We will be doing the Green Teamers throughout the season into the playoffs. Coverage really starting to pick up now. We'll be working on that. Maybe we'll get some guests in here as well to join us. Maybe even James in Waltham will stop by because I think he's got some takes. If I know a gentleman,
I believe he has some takes.
If I know a gentleman with some takes, James in Waltham is certainly one of them. So Jake, thanks so much. If you have any parting thoughts, please. But I think I've let enough green goo flow today.
Just throw this out there really quickly. The Celtics picked up Simons, right, in the offseason because they had to move off Holiday. Ended up flipping it for Vucevic, whose cap hit was $21.481 million. Luke Cornett, $11 million to cap hit. So just going to put that out there for you.
Look at that. All right. Well, Jake, just leaving breadcrumbs wherever you want to follow him. He's Jake Seymour. I'm James Scaramozzino. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back soon. And happy green teaming, everybody.